Hello. So we're gonna carry on with our textures and materials editing, and we're gonna go to a little extra work on those. So we open the file that we've just been working on, which was example 13, but in your case it will be available as example 14. And we have these two objects. We have basic sphere 1 and we have basic box 1. We're going to create two more objects. We're going to create a second basic box. It will be called basic box 2. So 18s. And that's basic box 2. So we use always self-explanatory names. Oh, sorry, what did I say, by 2? And we change the color to something that looks a bit more interesting. So we're going to use this pinkish. And we're going to create also another sphere. Why do I use sphere and boxes? Because it's simple, and the point is not about the objects, about what you do to them. And here's our sphere, and that's going to be basic sphere 2. And again we change the texture, the color, sorry, and we're gonna have something a bit more bluish. Okay, so these are our two objects. We make sure they have nice and neat dimensions because I like that. Sorry, so 470, 460, 470. Okay, now what we're going to do, we're going to start having some fun with the material editor. So if we click on the material editor, so if we call the material editor again, it's just pressing the key M, here it is, and we pick a new one and we start doing different things to it. So first what I would like to do is to change the diffuse color. Now the diffuse color is a very simple thing. The diffuse color is the color that an object reflects when the light hits it. So if we take this object and we're going to change its diffuse color, we have to disconnect the ambient from the diffuse, and I'll explain later what the three are. So the diffuse is the light an object produces when it's the color an object produces when light hits it. Ambient is the light, the color an object produces when it's in a shadow and it's hit indirectly by ambient light rather than directly by light. And specular is when an object is hit by light and it has a shiny surface, so you have like a highlight area, like a shiny area. That's the specular. So let's first play with the ambient, with the diffuse. So we change the diffuse and we make it, let's say, a bit more reddish. So you have like this. Okay, I'll go more here, yellowish rather, and we have a bit more saturation. Okay, so as you can see, that object is like this. Then we change the ambient. For example, the ambient, we'll make it a bit more, we cancel, we connect, we say yes, and then we disconnect, and then we play with this. That's my trick to be lazy, really. And we make it a bit more going towards this color. Okay, and there's not much difference because we don't have ambient light or anything on our object under the scene, and we can't really see things, but trust me, it gets particularly obvious when we do something. What we can check is, for example, if we add more saturation, we will see later some effects, but we better not. Okay, we'll keep that like this and we'll see some effects much later when you do ambient light. The last one is the specular, and the specular we're going to go for something a bit more yellow, I guess. So here, like this. Okay, and that's the object that we have at the moment. We can't see much difference, but I can assure you it's there. And you apply it to our object, and this is what we have. Now of course we can go here and we can apply a light and then we can see what happens, but we'll do that in a minute. So these are what your ambient, diffuse and specular settings are. There are other settings. There's the glossiness setting, for example, which is how glossy or how shiny or how non-shiny the object is. So you can increase that by a significant amount. And again, you have to wait for a direct light to hit to see difference, or you can reduce that by a significant amount. So at the moment, you don't see much difference, but we'll come back to it when we can see difference. When we can see a clear difference is the opacity, is how transparent the object is. So if we reduce that significantly, we're going to see our object becoming very transparent, okay? As you can see now. And that's what you need to understand, is that you can change the diffuse, which is the color an object produces when it's hit by light. The ambient, which is the color an object produces when it's in the shade and it's only hit by ambient light. And the specular, which is a shiny highlight that an object diffuses, like you can see here, where an object is hit by direct light. So we're going to apply a different material and we're going to do something different. We're only going to change the specular, for example, put it here, okay, and then you apply that to this and you can see how the color change. Sorry, that didn't change the color, the highlight, the specular changed, only diffuse. We'll have to come back to this when you put lights. So if I put a light now, let me do that, a free light. So up, okay, and I put it here. So I have a top left and front view. So I put the top, I put the light here, and then we're gonna move the light to have a little bit more yeah, and then okay, and then if we do a quick render, oh, I forgot to set up everything, sorry. So we have the light and we can edit the light and we can prepare different things. We can have it with a target, and then where's the target? We can move the target here up to here, and then we can move the target here. Okay, and then we make sure we're in the right. So we see the lighting on the other side, so we need to move the light to this side, and then here, oh sorry, here, and then we look at it, we have the light in front of us, and then if we do render, we have this. Now we can start playing with that, and we can start putting different diffuse and specular and all that, and increase the glossiness. So if we increase the glossiness here to, let's say 400, or it's 100 maximum, sorry, we can change, and we can, it's difficult to see really, but there is a difference. We can change the, if we go around and we change the ambient, so make it yellow for example, no, and this one we keep whitish, and we render again, and if we move around, it's very tricky to have the, to see all the effects. If you go around here and we render, can we see a little bit of, can't really see it very clearly, but we can see it at some point when we start doing things. So try again, for example, the specular change, and then do another render and see what happens, and keep playing around, because what you need to understand is that all material can be edited and all material can be created with different features added to it. Where is our, so we can change the transparency, yes, we can make it less like this, and we start having less and less, the sphere becoming more and more transparent. And when you render, we start seeing across, and we start seeing just about here the reddish highlight. So if I zoom in, you can see here a little bit of the reddish highlight as we defined it. So again, that depends on your light setting and so many different things, which we'll have to talk about in another session, but it's here, just where I'm pointing at my mouse. So trust me on that, okay? So that's what I wanted to discuss today, is the ambient color, which is a color an object produces when it's in the shade and suddenly illuminated by ambient light. The diffuse, which is the color an object produces when it's hit by direct light. And the specular, which is when the object is a bit shiny and how the light, when the light hits it, there's a kind of a highlight, like a bright spot. These are the three different colors you can use. The opacity is how transparent an object is. The glossiness is how glossy or how shiny an object is. In fact, the material is. And that's basically what I wanted to discuss for this particular example. So we're going to save these as the example number 14. So it's example 14. And we can move to the next tutorial. And that's it. So remember to save your files. If you're not opening my file and you're creating your own, make sure to save them regularly. Thank you.